Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a double header. It's going to be a relatively quick video. First of all, I literally just unboxed this the first minute of the last video, and then a spam call came through and ended the video. And I hate when that happens. And so I haven't even dived into what was sent yet, but here it is. Here's what was in the box. These are from a friend of the channel, a perfume friend, a fairy god person. And this is actually the second batch of samples that he's been kind enough to send me. His name is, he goes by Jonathan B. Swift on the channel. Eddie, thank you very much, my friend. I really do appreciate you sending me these and, you know, everything that you've done, commenting, liking the videos, and, you know, I love seeing your face below. I love reading your comments. So I'm excited for some of these samples. So first of all, let's pull out the natural stuff because I believe this is actual frankincense. Yeah, I believe this is actual frankincense. Yeah, it's got that lemony, you can see it's got that lemony, piney frankincense type vibe. I have some. It's just the real thing is just divine. Eddie, leave in the comment what these are because I'm sorry I don't know what they are, but some kind of wood chips, obviously. I wonder if this is little oud wood chips. Could be. Definitely could be oud wood chips. I honestly don't know. Eddie, let me know what these are, man. Thank you for your consideration with these. I'm gonna try to burn one of these soon. Drink of the day is the, what is this? Martinelli's apple juice. Good old Costco. Excuse me whilst I hydrate with apple juice this morning. Okay, let me put these back in the baggie so I don't lose them. Next, we're going to unbox the little samples that he sent me. And first we've got these three beauties, and I think this is also agar wood oil. Let's take a look and see what these are. I know these are very rare, hard to find stuff that he wanted me to smell. Oh, wow. Oud Labani by Agar Aura. I'm not familiar with this brand. Oud Lubani. Wow. Smells good from the cap. Let's see if it's on Parfumo or base notes or something. Oud Lubani. Agar Aura 2020. The production was apparently discontinued. I guess they also do limited batches. They also do limited batches here. So Omani frankincense, Malayan oud, and Burmese oud. I'm not familiar with this Agar Aura brand, but it has that woody, spicy accord that I love. So with these little samples like this, since I want to talk about this stuff, obviously I can't make that my scent of the day. There's just not enough juice there to do that. But what I can do is maybe one night before bed, you know, I'll spray it on and I'll just give you a very early initial impression just so I can put up a video on it and kind of talk about it. You know what I mean? Okay, next is Quia Shifra. Queer Shipra. This is another one where, you know, you're just gonna kind of, it looks like a pure, I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like an actual oil. Maybe I can get like a toothpick and just put some of it on and talk about it. It smells amazing. I love discovering these brands I've never heard of, like Agar Aura. Not even on my radar, you know. I've been so focused on the names like Russian Adam's Arij Ladore and Bortnikov, and then of course I discovered Ensar Oud, who I mistakenly thought was Sultan Pasha's brand, and Eddie actually corrected me. He said, no, Ensar Oud is Ensar, you know, that's who does that. I said, okay, very interesting. I was very taken with his Tiger Lust sample. And so Queer Chypre, Bergamot Rose, Indian Oud, Gaiac Wood, Patchouli, and Oak Moss. So this is another one where, you know, I'll probably just wear it to bed one day and try to talk about it. Sometimes it's hard when you do a video during the day, and then you don't want to do a second one at night. So maybe on days I have to go to the office and I can't do a video during the day, that'll be perfect for a night video. And then finally, Agar Parisian. Agar Parisian. Man, these smell really good. They smell high quality from the, at least from the atomizer, just smelling them. They smell very high quality. Agar Parisian. 2020 release. Yeah, this also says discontinued. So these must be just like limited batch runs, kind of like Russian Adam does with Arij Ladore. Bergamot, Rose, Grapefruit, Peru Balsam, Absinthe, Kumarin, Thai Oud, Cedar, Oak Moss. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. I will get my nose on these when I can and do early impressions. Thank you again, Eddie. Very, very kind of you. Let me put these back in here so I don't spill them or lose them. And then the final little package sent from Eddie is this. So we've got a bunch of stuff here. First of all, we have this, which he basically told me this was going to come this way. There's nothing but a drop left, but he's like, man, it's so rare. Even if you just got to smell it once, you know. Inverno Russe by Arij Ladore. God, that Russian Adam DNA, even from the atomizer, is just amazing. I'm not familiar with this. This is one of the ones that I've never smelled. Inverno Russe. Inverno Russo by Arij Ladore, 2017. This must have been one of his early releases. And it's white rose otto, white pepper, Omani white frankincense, clove, champaka, deer musk, civet, Chinese oud, Indian oud, Indonesian oud, betal leaf, I don't know what that is, Virginia cedar, benzoin, tonka. Okay, awesome. Can't wait to smell that. Let's see what this is. This one's wrapped. This one's a big dog. It looks like there's some juice in here. This is wrapped. Oh, there's a lot of juice in here. Oh, no, Eddie. Eddie. You're a prophet. I was just talking with... Oh, my God. I'm going to wear this tomorrow. I was just talking with Rudy, Time to Musk Up, that I need to smell this because Rudy said... He's been giving Russian Adam a hard time about trying to make a round 2 of this. This is Santal Galore, I believe it's called. Santal Galore. Let me pull up the note listing. Santal Galore. 2020. Floral Animalic. Durian Fruit Absolute. An Indonesian Sandalwood Absolute. Turkish rose water, rose, jasmine, osmanthus, Indonesian sandalwood, deer musk, oak moss, tonka bean, cassia, clove, and Mysore sandalwood absolute. This is, I mean, you can almost see, look at what it's done to the part where the juice used to be. It looks like little, I mean, it almost looks like it's sticking to the side. God, look at that. That is just beautiful. Thank you, Eddie. Seriously. You can't put a price on this because you can't get this anymore. And this is one of the ones that that Russian Adam did not send me to smell. So I'm slowly starting to get my nose on pretty much all of the Russian Adam offering. So what a treat that is. Thank you, mate. Seriously. All right, let's check out the last little box here. So I think this is the one where he wanted the... I think he said he wanted this little outer card back. I can't remember. I'll send it back to you if you want it back, mate. And let me know if there's anything from my collection you want to smell. This is, the original Ottoman Empire. How about that? The original Ottoman Empire. God, I want a bottle of this so bad. I mean, this could be #1 on my wish list, Ottoman Empire. If a bottle ever comes up for sale and they're not trying to gouge me, I would love to own a bottle of that stuff. There's the original card that it came in. Just what a treat. Thank you, Eddie. Seriously, I mean, you guys are way too kind. And I honestly feel, I've said this many a times, but I feel like I have the best fans. I don't even want to call you fans. I want to say, you know, I have the best, obviously, subscribers, but friends that are along for this journey with me. You know, it's just, I never see stuff. I hardly ever see stuff like this come up on YouTube, you know, where people are posting stuff that, you know, this is very rare, hard to find juice. This stuff is, you know, you could probably sell this on eBay for hundreds of dollars, just this little sample. So, I mean, you don't see kindness like this every day. So again, thank you, Eddie. Seriously, you guys sitting in the passenger seat, the journey, the friends of the channel. I feel very grateful to have you guys. The best first 1,500 subs a guy could ask for. All right, let's do the main topic of the day, which is going to be a comparison video between the great Guerlain Coriolan and the then re-release of the same fragrance, which is L'Âme d'un Héros. So I've got L'Âme d'un Héros on my right hand. Let me just do a fresh spray, because I know this. I've almost gone through the entire decant, and I've got 2 bottles of this stuff. So I know this fragrance pretty much like the back of my hand, but let me just, you know, put a fresh spray on. We've got L'Âme d'un Héros on the right hand, and we've got Coriolan on the left, and we're going to talk about these 2 fragrances. So if you guys don't know what this fragrance is, let's start at the very beginning. And the very beginning was actually not 1998. This came out in 1998. This is the last major masculine scent that LVMH allowed Jean-Paul Guerlain to release himself, okay? Because there were some other releases that he did. Like, for example, he did Guerlain Metallica. Metalis is what they ended up changing the name to when the band sued them. Yes, Metallica sued Guerlain over the name of a perfume. That's back when they were just suing everybody. But, what ended up happening is 1998, they allowed Jean-Paul Guerlain to take one last crack at it, because remember, he struck gold. He had lightning in a bottle with this release from the early 90s, Heritage, my favorite Guerlain masculine of all time right here, especially in the vintage gold cap EDT. I told Russian Adam about this, and he went out and bought a couple bottles, and he agreed with me. He said this is absolutely one of the greatest just designer masculine fragrances he's ever smelled. He said he loved it. He said all of his friends at the mosque loved it, all that stuff. So they allowed him to take another crack at it, and he released Coriolan, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because if you know the backstory, so if you go back to the beginning, like I said, this is not something that he created in 1998. He actually started working on this fragrance. There was a project called the Centurion Project. That's what it was codenamed, the Centurion Project. And if you know about this fragrance, which came out in the 80s, Guerlain's Derby. So Derby and Coriolan, rumor is that they were started and, worked on at the same time. So he started working on both of these fragrances in the early 80s. This one came out in 85. It's basically Guerlain's answer to like a big, bold 80s masculine, which I love this stuff. This is one of my favorite masculines of all time. And I've said this before, if I, had to go meet like the CEO of my company or something, and I'm going to go sit at the boardroom, this is what I'd wear. This is a absolute boss scent. This is a, you'll stamp your authority all over everybody wearing this stuff. It is just amazing. The spices, the leather note that does kind of play peekaboo, but I just love this stuff. And, if you like fragrances like Patel Pour Homme, Darby is right there. I mean, as far as like classic unicorn vintage masculine perfumes go. So he started working on Coriolan at the exact same time. And what's interesting, if you use the word centurion and you think about the word centurion, if you look at the original bottle of Darby, it's called the Eagle bottle for whatever reason. But if you actually look at the bottle, the original bottle itself, it almost looks like there's a Roman breastplate, okay? And it looks like there is a Roman shield on the front of the bottle. If you go back and find those old bottles of Darby, they call them the Eagle bottles, you'll notice that the Centurion name makes perfect sense when you look at it that way, because it does look like a shield of armor almost. And Coriolan was a Roman general. And if you're not familiar with the story of Coriolan, it's too long to tell, but basically he was a very famous, very decorated military general who went against the establishment. Long story short, if you condense it as short as you can get, he went against the establishment. And what an interesting story and name for Jean-Paul Guerlain to release this perfume in, because in 1998, this was a fragrance a decade or two out of its time. And, Jean-Paul Guerlain just did whatever the hell he wanted. He did whatever he wanted with Heritage, and it worked this time. And that was his MO. He didn't follow trends. He didn't do focus groups. He's a Guerlain. A Guerlain releases whatever a Guerlain wants to, and that's the way it is. And so he did the same thing in 98, and unfortunately this one flopped. But it is one of the most beautiful bottles you will ever see. This is supposed to be like a gun powder pouch, and look at this. I mean, look at the details. It is just stunning. One of my favorite bottles in the entire collection. Now, this is plastic. It's not brass or anything, but I just love the entire aspect of the bottle. I got 2 of these 50 ml bottles sealed for $90 about 3 years ago. Someone was just telling me they just found a 100 ml bottle for a great price. I'm guessing $100 or so. And so this is still out there. And the reason it's still out there, I'll tell you why it's still out there. It's still out there because this is the least flashy, the least attention-grabbing, the least champagne, pizzazz, fragrance. It doesn't have that look at me. It doesn't have, this has a little bit of that look at me, but I don't even think this did well in sales. And, I understand why, because let me tell you the note breakdown, okay? So it's categorized basically as like this spicy, woody type scent, but I would add citruses, okay? So if you like fragrances like Eau Sauvage, the original Eau Sauvage from the 60s that Edmund Rudnitska created, who, by the way, Edmund Rudnitska trained a little bit in St. Petersburg under the great Ernst Beau, who was the one of the perfumers for the Tsar of Russia before Chanel, kind of stole him away. But if you like fragrances like Edmund Rudnitska's Eau Sauvage from the 60s, which was a huge hit, if you like fragrances like this, YSL Pour Homme, this is basically a citrus chiffre fragrance. If you like fragrances like this is one of the new additions. Well, I had a bottle of this and I used the whole thing. Now, it was a small bottle. It was a 25 or 30 ml bottle. Now I've got a full 100 ml. Capucci pour homme. If you like Capucci pour homme, that kind of citrus Shifra fragrance, Coriolan is like, it's got that DNA, okay? But it's done in a Guerlain way, okay? It's probably my favorite of those three I just mentioned. Capucci, pour homme, YSL, and this being the third one. This is probably my favorite of the three. Now, it's not anywhere near Darby status. Darby, for me, is unicorn. I mean, this is signature set worthy stuff for me. But Coriolan is in that idea, okay? So he was working on it in the early 80s. You have to remember, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, lots of citrus masculine Shifras were being created. And so Guerlain was working on Coriolan under that backdrop, okay? And it just never got released. He had the chance to release one last fragrance of his career. He calls it Coriolan. Go read the story of Coriolan. It's amazing. And so here's the note breakdown. Bergamot, neroli, petitgrain, sage, lemon. That's the top. So you already get the idea. This opens up very bitter, very herbal, pissy, a little bit pissy, but extremely classy. I mean, you could wear this to a ball. You could wear this to a baby shower. You could wear this to a interview. I mean, anywhere this would work. Even with the little bit of, you know, that little animalic pissy opening, I still would have no problems wearing this. It's very posh, very classy. You could also throw this fragrance into the mix while I was throwing out names. So Capucci pour homme, YSL pour homme, and then the grandfather of both of those would be something like this, Chanel's Pour Monsieur. If you like these kind of citrus Shifra fragrances, which most people nowadays don't, this is very out of style. I like stuff that's out of style. You know, I mentioned Darby, I mentioned Heritage, you know, I love Coros and Antaeus and Leonard Pour homme and all that stuff. That even seems more in style than this. This style, the Chanel Pour Monsieur EDT, the Capucci Pour homme, the YSL Pour homme, seems like almost like grandfather fragrances. I'll throw another one in there. Equipage, the original Equipage from Guy Robert. They all share similarities. I would put Coriolan in that basket of fragrances, if you will. High level. Obviously, there's differences, right? And then once you get past that lemony, bergamot, neroli opening, you start to get touches of spice. And you start to get stuff like pepper, nutmeg. There's a freshness of juniper. Juniper is used to like freshen up gin. So there's this freshness of juniper. There's ginger. There's green touches as well. So you get basil, you get old school masculine coriander. There's a little bit of floral here in Coriolan, the vintage, but it's not as floral a fragrance as Lame Dune Héros. We'll get to that in just a second. I think I have a theory as to what Thierry Wasser did to keep it, because these are the same fragrances, by the way. In case you don't know, I'm not just picking this out of the sky. Guerlain is famous for releasing a fragrance, discontinuing it, and then a year or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20 years later, release the same fragrance under a different name. They did it with, just to give you an example, they did it with Sange d'Amboise d'Et. Sange d'Amboise d'Et is from their Middle Eastern line, their whatever they call it. I can never remember the name. It's on the tip of my tongue. Deserts of Orient or something. And they released the exact same fragrance under the name Bois Mysterio. These two are exactly the same fragrance. Completely different names, same fragrance, okay? Guerlain is famous for that. They did the exact same thing with Louis. L-U-I, not L-I-U. L-I-U is a different fragrance, but they released Guerlain's Louis, L-U-I, which is a almost like this carnation, clove, spicy vanilla thing that Delphine Jelk and Thierry Wasser worked on, and they discontinued that one, and they re-released it in their upscale line, and they tripled the price, and it's called like Au Filet Potpourri, or I forget the name, but If you look up Guerlain L'Âme, it'll pull up the new name now in Parfumo. So they're famous for doing that. That's one of the things I hate. There's very few things about I hate about Guerlain, just the way they operate. I don't like many of their new scents, granted. But I don't like that. I don't like the fact that they discontinue something, issue it in a new name, jack the price up. But they've done that with Coriolan and L'Âme d'un Héros, which basically translates to the soul of a hero. Okay? Or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but it's something like the soul of a hero. And it was released in their art and materials line, which is basically the same way that they released Darby. And I have a decant of the new Darby juice, which is also discontinued. All this stuff we're talking about is discontinued. Coriolan is long discontinued. This only lasted a year or two before it got chopped. This lasted a little bit longer, but they have now discontinued it as well. And Darby as well, discontinued. Even the re-release that Thierry Vasseur did a decade and a half ago, whatever it was, even that's chopped now. But sticking with Coriolan, so there's not as much floral aspect in the vintage. There is there's a ylang-ylang note. You get a little bit of that flowery, banana-like yellow smell from the ylang-ylang. I actually smelled ylang-ylang Absolute, and it has a very distinctive smell. And it feels like that is the flower that is the most amped up. Maybe there's some other things here. As far as florals go, maybe there's small touches of other things like jasmine, but very small. It's not an overtly floral fragrance to me. It starts to dry down into a more woody fragrance. There is vetiver in the base, okay? And leather. There is a leathery base, but it's not the kind of leather that I go crazy for. If you've ever seen my eyes roll in the back of my head when I smell Bel Ami, or, you know, Leonard Pour Homme, or Pure Distance M, or even this. I wore this last night, and I absolutely loved it more than I even thought I did. The regular version of Canitze 10. I was saying, oh, I don't know how much I love this. Maybe I need to smell it. No, I love this stuff. I wore it last night, and it totally reminded me. Even the modern stuff is good. I'd love to smell a vintage. So those kind of leathers that I go crazy for, this is not that kind of leather. The leather in this is used to accent the citrusy and the spicy notes and the herbal quality. So this is all about that pissy, bitter, herbal, vintage, masculine vibe, okay? And I've done a side-by-side comparison. I've been threatening to do this video for a long time, but whenever I wear this, whenever I wear citrus fragrances in general, any of the ones I talked about, Equipage, Pour Monsieur, Capucci Pour Homme, YSL Pour Homme, I like to douse myself in these fragrances. I just do, you know, it is because of the way that the fragrances wear. Some people might think that's crazy, but I just absolutely douse myself in it. Just, you know, lather it on, right? You know, you're caked in the fragrance kind of feel. And, so doing a comparison, you can't really do that because you can't just lather it everywhere. You've got to kind of compare one hand versus the other. And I've been doing this all day today. And my conclusion is that Thierry Vasseur, obviously, when you first smell, first 5 minutes of the fragrance, first 3 minutes of the fragrance, the difference is that L'Âme d'un Héros starts out very, it doesn't have that sharp pissiness that you get in the vintage Coriolan, which I actually really like. I know that sounds crazy, but that sharp, pissy, challenging aspect is one of the things I like about this fragrance. I've said it before, but one of my favorite perfumers from the past said that a good fragrance should shock you. Like, when you smell it, you should go, what in the hell is that? Like, it should almost offend you at first. I think Edmund Rudnitska said that. And you get a little bit of that in Coriolan. I could totally see why this didn't do well in the 90s, where everything was fresh, aquatic, you know, it was all about that watery freshness. Aqua di Gio was selling like mad. And then Guerlain puts out Coriolan. Granted, cool-ass bottle. But the fragrance itself, it's a good, even great fragrance that was just released at the wrong time. I mean, this category of perfumes that I'm talking about, this is easily my favorite of the bunch because it has that Guerlain base. I'm never bored wearing this fragrance. Sometimes I get bored wearing Pour Monsieur, even vintage Equipage, Capucci Pour Homme, YSL Pour Homme. I get a little bored wearing those sometimes. This is never boring to me. And it's because it has that shock value in the opening, that bitterness, and then it has that textured, damp, dark. You know how when you smell oak moss in a fragrance, like vintage oak moss, if you've ever smelled real oak moss, which I have the absolute, and I'll tell you what, I had that stuff on a test strip. It lasted 3 weeks almost, since whenever our Russian Atom interview was till now. I can still smell it on the test strip. That's how resilient and strong real oak moss is. And it has this distinct dark, damp, you know, almost like you're standing in a hollowed out tree and there's just nothing but oak moss around you and that's all you can smell. It almost tickles the nose, right? You get that nose tickling old school oak moss that just almost makes it sizzle on your hand. It makes it pop. It makes it, you know, oak moss and ambergris kind of do the same thing to a fragrance in different ways to me. Oak moss kind of keeps it dark and textured and adds a little bit of that nose tingling vibe, and ambergris adds that, you know, almost animalic warmth, you know, that, sorry, someone was calling me on the phone again. I didn't want it to do what it did earlier. So it adds this, you know, almost sparkle, this pizzazz, this light, this fractionated, light bouncing off of the water type vibe. You know what I mean? It has that. That's what ambergris does. And, so the oak moss in this is very in the vintage. It's very distinctive and it's a very important part of this composition. Now, L'Âme d'un Héros, feels a little bit more dull. So it's 100% the same fragrance. And in fact, if you weren't really paying attention and you just kind of nonchalantly sniffed every 10, 20 minutes, if you just went like this, you'd say they're the same. They're just the same thing. They're just exactly the same. Guerlain just repackaged this in this and sold it. But I don't think that's the case. I think what Thierry Vasseur did, because first of all, the very first thing that I notice is Neroli. For those of you that don't know, Neroli is a very expensive note, extremely expensive, way more expensive than you would expect, right? Good quality Neroli, high quality Neroli, if you wanted to say royal Neroli of the top quality, is extremely expensive. And Thierry Vasseur supplemented this Neroli in the reformulation with lemon blossom, which is a little bit cheaper of a note. And so there's a little bit of a change in the opening and it almost dulls the fragrance down a little bit. And then there's this almost anise-like absinthe, okay? So there's this anise note which is supposed to help. Now it's very slight, okay? You're not going to detect it. You're going to have to really pay attention. But they've kept the ylang, they've kept the juniper, they kept the pepper. They added this anise-like note to the mid. And that anise-like note is supposed to, I think, take this place of the nutmeg, because the nutmeg is a little bit amped up here. I think Thierry Vasseur did a couple things. He amped up the florals. Okay, so this is a little bit more floral to me. And I think he did the same thing whenever he reformed Darby. Because when I smell the new version of Darby in the Arts and Materials, the decant that I have of the new one, not the vintage one like this, but I get much more carnation. So it's like he used the carnation accord to try to recreate notes that couldn't be used from the vintage. And I think he did something similar here. I think what Thierry Vasser did is he used Immortelle and he used Lemon Blossom and this anise-like mixture to try and capture the essence of Coriolan. And he did a hell of a job. There is no doubt about it. It is a beautiful recreation. And it's definitely the same fragrance. You know, how the perfumer does their tricks to meet this or that doesn't concern the average consumer. They just want to know, does it smell the same? Does it smell the same? Yes. Does this L'Âme d'un Héros have the same pop? You know, the same deepness, that nose tingling, you know, like you can almost feel the fragrance going into your nose when you're smelling it? Does it have that? No. It's duller. It's duller in the sense that it isn't as vibrant, okay? It doesn't have that, you know, textured feeling that the vintage has, which is to be fully expected. Is this a good reformulation? Yes. Now, the problem is price. They tripled the price when they went to the L'Âme d'un Héros, when they went to the Arts and Materials, literally tripled. I think this was selling for $300 or something in the bottle with the wood around the outside. And that $300 price tag, you do get 100 mils, I think, instead of 50. But if you can do what I did and grab yourself 250 mils or 100 mils for $100 of Coriolan, do it. Now, I have a stipulation, an asterisk. This fragrance is very citrus heavy, as I've said before. The citruses are extremely important to this fragrance. The bergamot, the lemon in the top. There's a lot of it too. It's very citrus heavy. And if you buy a bottle that's been sprayed like mine and used, you know, I've been using this for years now, if they aren't taking care of it, so when I put my fragrances away, this closes. So I can actually close these and make sure no light comes into my fragrance collection, right? If this has been sitting on a windowsill or something, or, you know, in someone's car, or whatever it is, if it hasn't been stored properly, this fragrance has one of the highest chances of any Guerlain I've ever smelled of going bad. Because of that heavy citrus concentration, citruses are usually the most volatile notes. That's why they put them on the top, is they usually fly off the fastest, right? And they also go bad the fastest, is the thing. So if you're going to buy a vintage of Coriolan, which I think it's an amazing value for money, and this kind of perfumery, you know, 20 years in the making. Think about that. Jean-Paul Guerlain started working on this in the early 80s, if the information on Project Centurion is correct, right? Early 80s. It was released in the late 90s. Almost 20 years he's working on this fragrance. That kind of dedication and time, that type of perfumery, that dedication to the art of perfumery is dead today. Dead. That's it. You're never going to find a fragrance that's been in the works for 20 years anymore. They churn fragrances out today every month or two. Forget years. They're on a month timeline. Some perfumers have been told, have given interviews where they've said houses have given them a week or two to make a composition. A week. And so if you're a lover of the art of perfume, okay, even if this isn't your favorite style, like I mentioned these kind of fragrances, even if this is not your favorite style of fragrance, and I can completely understand why, it's not my favorite either, for the sheer art and love and understanding, and to get one of the greatest perfumers of all time, in my opinion, the history of the world. Jean-Paul Guerlain is one of the greatest perfumers in the history of the world. To get his thoughts on paper like this and to do it for $100 or less is an absolute no-brainer. Now, I haven't checked stock recently. I don't know if there's still a bunch of bottles like this floating around. I assume there are. If you can get a better deal on Coriolan, do it. It is slightly better than L'Âme d'un Héros because of the reasons I just talked about. I feel like you get more high-class neroli in the original. And I just feel like it just has that extra, you know, that the oak moss and the patchouli and all the extra stuff that you get, you know, in the vintage. It makes the fragrance better, in my opinion. Slightly better, okay? This is still a great fragrance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with L'Âme d'un Héros. And if you wore this, and then you wore this, or if you wore this and then you wore this, you may not even see the difference. But when you have them on your hand and you're comparing side by side, you can tell. You can definitely see the slight nuances. That's why these comparison videos are so important. Number one, you have to have the juice, right? And not everyone has the juice where they can do comparisons like this. That's number one. Number two, you have to take the time. And it's just about the time and doing it. And for me, when I like to lather stuff on, like I said, these videos aren't fun for me. I don't like the comparison. I don't like putting one on one hand, wearing different fragrances. I'm weird like that. You know, I like to have my fragrance on, even though this is clearly the same fragrance. In my mind, it's like, it's not exactly the same. And so, you know, it's something that I'm doing for you guys, obviously. People, actually, it's funny because my scent of the day I put up here, okay? I put it up there because I have space. And so I put it up there, and last night I put this up on there because I knew I was going to do this comparison. Number one, I think this evaporated just a little bit. I think I had a little bit more before you know, that's the downfall of these atomizers that don't seal very well. And I have the plumber's tape, but that's just too much work. I can't be bothered with that. And so when I woke up this morning, someone sent me an Instagram message and they told me about the bottle of Coriolan. They asked my opinion. I said, it's funny you're writing me because I was literally planning on doing a video, and here's the video. This is my thoughts on these two. If you can find the original sealed at a great price, absolutely do it. It's one of the best of its categories. If you get this and you just don't like it, it's going to be probably a little tough to like. You're going to have to wear it and appreciate it and, you know, get to know the nuances. And there are nuances in this fragrance. Like I said, decades in the making. So when you wear this for a fragrance lover, you're going to be able to pay attention and see the dry down evolve and the Guerlain start to come out. And there is a little bit of a heft to the base. You get a little leather, a little benzoin. You know, it's not just an ethereal eau de cologne. No, there's more to this. Good fragrance, maybe bordering on great fragrance that's released in the wrong time. Wrong decade, honestly. Maybe wrong 2 decade. Maybe this almost lasted so long that it, you know, came around and became popular again. But as a perfume lover, okay, this is one to put on the list. Absolutely put on the list. If you've never smelled Coriolan, I think it's underrated. Okay, I think not many people talk about this. I understand why they don't talk about it, but it deserves more love. So my prognosis, okay, is going to be if you can find a bottle sealed of Coriolan, do it, or unsprayed. If you can't, then L'Âme d'un Héros is a good enough representation, let's say, to get a feel of the heart and soul of the fragrance. If you smell this and love it, hunt down a bottle of Coriolan. And I've got 2 of these, and I'm happy I do because, like I said, I can just lather this type of fragrance on, especially during the heat. So if you're looking for kind of a spicy, woody, green, citrus fragrance, this is one of the best. One of the most underrated, amazing story. Like I said, look up the name, Coriolan. Look up the Roman general and his story and how he went against the establishment. And Jean-Paul Guerlain picking this name, I mean, just, he was such his own man. I love that about him. It was just a big middle finger to the establishment. As a rebel at heart, that stuff resonates with me. I absolutely love Jean-Paul Guerlain's attitude towards fragrance, how, you know, that kind of stuff. He was an amazing perfumer. And so yes, Coriolan deserves much more credit than it gets. the final true Jean-Paul Guerlain masculine that LVMH allowed him to do. And look at this bottle. I mean, it's just stunning. So anyways, that's my take on Coriolan. If you have experience with it, do leave me a comment below. I appreciate the feedback and support, and you know, appreciate seeing your faces in the comments. To Eddie, thank you for this stuff, man. I mean, this is, you can't put a price tag on stuff like this. I can't wait. I literally want to just wear this right now. You know, I'm going to wait till tomorrow, but God. Oh, just smelling it from the atomizer. I mean, Jesus. Thank you again, man. Seriously, you're way too kind for all these samples. And like I said, if you want to smell anything in my collection, just shoot me an email, and I'll build you a little starter kit and send it back your way. So thanks to everyone for watching. Cheers, and I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Bye, guys.